Hey, I have a second channel. Cube Compium TDX. Hey everybody, welcome back to this video series on doing part swapping on this machine here, as well as, well, what's that case in the floor at the moment, since I got parts pulled out of it and scattered everywhere. But if you have not watched part 1, please go watch it. That way you'll see what happened prior to this part. And also be sure to subscribe to your channel and be sure to tick the bell when you get notified of new video posts. Anyways, so on this system here, I just got done changing out that CPU cooler. So this is the one that was in there. Now the interesting fact about this cooler is this one here was originally for either a Phenom II X4 or an FX8120. Either one of those two processors. This was the boxed cooler. Now, for the FX8120, this cooler was definitely in stock form, kind of like that one there. Definitely just barely enough to keep things under control, which is why I changed out the stock fan, like what's on that cooler, for this one. That way I could manually ramp it up with the motherboard, because the motherboard this was on could support 3-pin fans, therefore it was able to control it. The fans that come on these AMD boxed coolers, I can't say for sure if it still applies to the Ryzen ones. It might, but these in particular, they actually have a built-in thermal sensor or thermistor that monitors temperature near the heatsink. And I've noticed with these things, even like the real basic ones, like this little one right here, which was actually for a Phenom II X4, which was a very cool running CPU. Even this one has a thermal sensor, and I do believe, because even with the CPU fan settings set to maximum, this one would vary its fan speed if things started to heat up. It would actually start to spin faster, at least if I remember right. So that's why I had changed out this fan, because to be honest, the fact that the motherboard supported a 3-pin fan control, and it had a bunch of these Taysol fans, or at least that was the heatsink brand that these came off of. This probably came off an old Socket 478 or something cooler. Since I had a bunch of these kicking around, I figured, you know what, might as well make use of them, because they can throw a crap ton of air, and as you heard in the last video, they get quite noisy when they're at full spin, 5,000 RPMs. So we got this one in there now, and it's much quieter, and it's keeping things under control. Of course, CPU's going to run a little warmer because, well, this heatsink fan here definitely, at least the fan that's on it, definitely isn't throwing as much air. But I mean, 3,300 RPM versus 5,000 RPMs, there's definitely a difference there. So you can see I got the side panel on the side of it and everything, and it's up here and running in the BIOS. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the BIOS on this one, and let's just go ahead and boot into Windows. Why not? I think we actually, that's right, we had Windows 11 on this thing from a previous video. Tell you what, guys, Windows 11 sure does run great on a system that does not meet the Microsoft Elite Class minimum system requirements to run Windows 11. This system is nowhere near meeting the minimum requirements for Windows 11, but look how fast we booted into Windows 11 on this thing. Now, this is Windows 11 21H2. So if we go into settings and go to about, we can see 21H2. So this install actually had previously ran on the FXA 120 setup, but you can see, I mean, the Phenom II quad-core 925 CPU with a mild overclock. It's running quite well. They'll go to performance. Showing it's running at 2.8 gigahertz. Not really sure what's going on there. Could be something in Task Manager. Well, actually, yeah, we'll run CPU-Z, see what it's running at. Yeah, this apparently is an old, it's an old version of CPU-Z. Probably doesn't have any support for, of course, Windows 11. But you can see it's showing we're running at 3 gigahertz. It's a Phenom II Quad 925 CPU. So, of course, we can't see the bus speed or none of that right now because it's... But, anyway, let's go ahead and move on to finishing up the second computer. Okay, so I got the other case up here on the table, and if you look at this Corsair TX650 power supply, non-modular power supply. Look at all these cables. Tons and tons of cables. Way too many for this system. Far too many for this machine. Definitely don't need this many cables. So, kind of like the last one, I'm going to change out the power supply for one that has fewer cables. So this one has a peak rating of 520 watts. It has two 12-volt rails. One of them is 16 amps, the other is 18 amps. So it tells you which one is which. The yellow/black is the 12-volt 2 or 12V2, and we look at these cables, we should be able to determine which is which. So it looks like, yep, our CPU power is on one rail, and our video card, so I can locate it. So this one has two 6-pin, a 6-pin and a 6+2 power connection. It's just solid yellow. So CPU is on one rail, graphics card as well as drives are on the other rail. So this unit, previously it ran the Mid-Tower Lux Black Max for a little while. This was back in 2013, right before 2013. Yeah, for a little while before the Black Max got the stuff that's currently in the Windows 11 test rig, which is the A6 6420K. The Black Max was briefly running former Mid-Tower Lux hardware, which was the Phenom II Quad 965 CPU. And I believe I had a mild overclock on it too. So it was definitely a space heater. It definitely drew a lot of power. Put this little unit here to the test, and it has always ran fine. This one, the fan will ramp up when it starts to get warm. So it'll be installed with the fan facing down, so we'll always get fresh air, because this is a bottom mount case, or bottom mount PSU case. Some of my viewers are probably laughing because this is like the first bottom mount power supply case system. Well, not the very first one. I did service a computer back last year. That was a iBuyPower system, a pre-build. That was a bottom mount PSU system, but this is the first time I'm like going through and rebuilding a system with a bottom mount PSU style case. Okay, so I got that power supply pulled out, and you can see what I'm talking about here. There's so many cables on this thing. It's got, of course, the CPU power connection. It's got two 6+2 pin video card power connections. It's got a 20+ 4-pin motherboard connection, along with 8 serial HCA power connections, along with 8 4-pin OS connections. I mean, look at all these wires. Now, the unit itself, I'd say it's definitely a tank for sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, built really well. Yeah, honestly, I don't think it has that many hours on it. It actually still has kind of a new smell to it, and which makes me think this computer, at least that was in this case, did not see all that many hours of runtime. I mean, it probably seen, I'm gonna guess it didn't see a year of service. And for the rest of that time, it either got used a little bit by his nephew or just sat in storage. But I'll keep this power supply here as a spare for the Mid-Tower Lux, because, I mean, the Mid-Tower Lux, it's got, what, 6 SATA devices? Yeah, I think there's something else in that machine that takes a SATA connection. And, of course, maybe a handful of Molex connections. So, I mean, it'd be a good spare for Mid-Tower Lux, or if I gotta build a system. Just need to blow it out a little bit, but yeah, that power supply is there. Is definitely adequate for this machine. So we'll go over what connections it has. It has, again, I think I mentioned earlier, a 6+2 pin and a 6-pin video card power connection. It has 2 SATA and 1 Molex there. 2 Molex. So that's 3 Molex, 2 SATA. 5 SATA and a floppy disk connection. CPU power connection. And a 20+ 4-pin motherboard connection. So fewer connections, and also these cables, some of them are a little bit shorter, but they'll be adequate for the system. That being said, we're going to pop that power supply in the case, and we're going to get ready to start throwing this thing together. Okay, so the motherboard that we're putting in here, in addition to plenty of SATA connections, it also offers a parallel HCA or IDE connection for a CD or DVD drive. The system currently has a SATA DVD writer. I have a huge overabundance of these IDE DVD burners and DVD-ROM drives, so we're going to stick both of these in here. We'll take that out and stick both of these in here. Make them and put them to use. Now, this particular case, it has this little toolless lever for installing a 5¼ drive, but apparently there were a few more that came with it, I'm guessing, and they must have got lost, or maybe they just included one, which I don't think that's the case. So we're going to have tool-free operation for the topmost one, but the next one down, nah, not so much. So I gotta take this metal piece out of here, because this case has never had a second optical drive popped in it before. Now, of course, to be honest, these optical drives, they don't get used that much these days. But what's nice is, should you want to put this back in place, it appears you can. They have, yeah, you can actually put a couple of screws to re-secure it back in if you'd like. But the thing is, I mean, these optical drives, they hardly get used because they're an older technology. I use them sometimes, you know, from time to time, but sometimes when you're just trying to get rid of them, You just throw them wherever you can. So what's nice is this case, well, it's funny. You have removable dust filters on these mesh covers, or yeah, if you want to call it mesh covers, to help. It helps promote airflow, of course. But yeah, you have so many other openings in this case, intakes that do not have dust filters. So I guess it was a nice try by the case OEM to provide dust filters, but I guess some is better than none. I guess I'm just kind of old school. I don't really deal with the dust filters that much. Now, if I was building new systems and new cases came with dust filters, of course I would use them. But and of course my systems, I just occasionally clean them out with the air compressor. But anyway, let's go ahead and pop these drives in. This one gets put in up top. Just like that. Stick this one right below it. Now for the first one, we can of course use the tool-free thing, but for the second one we're going to have to put some screws in. Okay. So just two on this side should be fine. I mean, that's kind of how they have it up here. Now, of course, I could use, you know, this ugly gray cable here, but I do have other options. One in particular is I got these black cables, which, funny enough, these were harvested from an E-machine system. Believe it or not. Okay, so I gotta make sure these jumpers on these drives are both set to cable select. Looks like the top one is set to master. And of course, those who have worked with IDE drives, you had master and slave. Or cable select, and let the cable that supports cable select it for you. And of course, with SATA, it's just one cable goes to one drive. Tuck that up in there. And we definitely have enough cable there to reach the connection on the motherboard. Yeah, we're good for sure. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and install the motherboard. Gotta pop the shield plate in first. I know it's kind of off view, but it's going to pop that in real quick. That one actually went in pretty easy. Sometimes you're not quite so lucky with these things. One thing I'm curious of, oh, this rubber band off here. Oh, it just reaches. Yeah, the CPU power connection just reaches. So, yeah. they did get it just long enough. And since we got a liquid cooler going on here, we'll be good. Definitely got room since we don't have a huge cooler right here. It's one thing I didn't think of until just now. It's like, oh, is that cooler gonna fit? Now another thing is this all-in-one liquid cooler has a little bit of an issue going on with it, which it can be easily corrected. Alright, so if we have a look here at this fan, do you notice something? There's a missing blade. I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. Somehow it happened. So, yeah. We're going to take that fan out of there. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I believe this cooler will work just fine as a single fan unit. So long as you have the single fan pulling through the radiator, kind of like what you have on a car. Think of a front-wheel drive car, or these newer cars in general that have electric fans on them. Most of the time, you have fans that are sucking through the radiator. So we're going to go back with just the one fan. I'm going to install the fan into the back of the case and of course mount the radiator to it to act as a pull configuration. It'd also take up a little less space in the case too. Now, to be honest, the way this thing was previously set up, it was actually drawing in air from the back and blowing it into the system. But I'm going to actually have it going the other way because, let's be honest, now if you're overclocking, you're looking to get the absolute max out of the cooler, sure, have it suck in air from outside. But if you got a case that has lots of ventilation to where your internal temps are going to be relatively reasonable, I'd say you can, if you're looking, for something like that, you could just have it draw air, blow it out the back. That way you're also getting better airflow through the case. Now, of course, on my system at Tower Lux, I got the radiators up on top, so they get fresh air. And they, of course, return that air to the room because they don't blow into the case. But I did used to have a Corsair H50 in the Mid-Tower Lux for a little while. This was back in, I want to say, 2011. It was only for a few months because after a few months I came across a part system at the former Goodwill Computer Works store that had a Thermaltake Big Water 735 liquid cooling system in it, which is how the Mid-Tower Lux ended up with Thermaltake components on its water cooling system. So anyway, let's get this motherboard bolted in, and then we're going to get that liquid cooler set in there. Okay, so I just ran into a little dilemma here with this liquid cooling system. So, it's not the fault of the liquid cooling system. It's kind of the fault of the computer case and the motherboard. For one, I mean, this case, it gives you plenty of area to install. Let's say up to a 240mm radiator if you wish. But you can't because, well, the motherboard tray is like right next to the top of the case. They didn't give you a few inches like they give in a lot of newer cases. So that's out the window. And on the back here, you see that cooler that's on the VRM of the motherboard? Yeah, well, it just sticks up about a couple of millimeters too high to block you from being able to install the radiator in the spot it was previously in. Yeah, lovely, guys. So, you see how it mounted right now? It's the only way I could do it is I can mount it externally, but it's an all-in-one cooling system. It's a closed-loop system. Therefore, I'm going to have to open it. To install it like this, I'm going to have to open it. So I had to install it like this in order to allow there to be clearance to get tubes in through here, which is still kind of tight. But the case does offer knockouts, so I may knock those out to make this space a little bit larger, and I may be able to mount it with these down toward the bottom. That way I don't have to run the tubing quite as far. But the thing is, I'm going to probably have to get different tubing, and therefore this is going to turn into a custom water cooling loop. Kind of a hacked system. It's either that, or I could just throw a heatsink fan on this thing and call it a day. But kind of defeats the purpose of why I did the swap anyway. Now, this case does offer a lot better ventilation, so even it would even help an air cooling setup perform better. But still, kind of the idea was to swap this over into this case to be able to make use of this liquid cooling system. So I'm going to think about it. So that being said, this wraps up part 2. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that wraps up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to CoopComputer channel, and be sure to tick the bell. That way you get notified of new video posts. Also, I recommend following CoopComputer Company on Facebook. A link is in the video description. In addition to computer tech videos, I have a second channel, CubeCompMTDX. Links are available at the end of this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching and your support.